This is the land of stolen glances and fogged windows, the land of legs brushing and lingering pauses, of first kisses and whispered vows. This is the land of golden hazed afternoons and leafy midnight shadows, the land of crickets by the river and birds across the plains, of stadium lights and theater marquees. This is the land of the majestic and the profane, the land of the desired and the forgotten, of the past and of the future.
Talking today about the American experience and that it's cheeky and cool, sophisticated and fun. It's broad and diverse, but we often see it in brands through one of three lenses. Often you see it in New York City, in Greenwich Village or Park Slope. You'll see it through New England, through the lens of Ivy and British influences, or you'll see LA's kind of slouchy casualness and Malibu vibes. And even within those three placements, you also often see a very narrow spectrum. So for example, these images are from brands as diverse as Kith and Ralph Lauren, and even some work that I've done with Amazon. But it's all within kind of the same spectrum. You're not seeing a lot of Rockaway Beach or the High Line within New York. Now, you do sometimes see a bit more breadth of the American experience actually through Japan's Amatora culture and the trends there. But it's not very deep. It's just a kind of a surface level examination of different experiences within the culture. Now, having said that, current brands that are, considered very trend forward, and even as you go back, all brands that are trend forward through eras often are reflecting components of American heritage, be it denim or graphics or just how they're telling, how they're showing their product. But the thing they are lacking is they're not doing it by capturing stories. And those can be expressed within the American experience without necessarily being preppy, without necessarily being postmodern. But as I mentioned before, they can be cheeky and cool, sophisticated and fun. Within the kind of core of America, there are things like the 21C Hotels, which is a small chain in a couple of southern cities that have incredibly progressive art in their lobbies and in their rooms. Speaking of art, we have things like the Art Institute of Chicago with, really world-famous paintings, great retreats, great restaurants, cultural events, musicians like Leon Bridges. That reflect the same level of sophistication that you would see within those New England, New York, and California references. America can also be represented in the energy of a Riverwalk restaurant at dusk, in the romance of a curated county fair, in the quiet reverence of a snowfall in the forest, and in the unique designs of neon roadside signs. As well, America can be represented by the pageantry of the Kentucky Derby, by the excitement of a rodeo on a Saturday night, and by the long summer afternoons on one of Minnesota's 10,000 lakes or on the shorelines on the coast of Michigan. So taken together, the cultural experiential mix represents more than simply a location, but it can be presented as a lifestyle. And it's actually a lifestyle that has traction internationally, especially when you see European audiences, when you look at Asian audiences, and particularly in Japan, as I mentioned with Amatora, but also in larger cities here domestically, when you see brands like Timberland, Carhartt, Camber, all become reference points to what a New Yorker, a Seattleite, a San Franciscan would lens as a quasi-exotic other. Thus, there exists within this new lens a sustained opportunity for kind of a full 360 lifestyle experience. Not just apparel, but potentially telling stories, and through other categories like hard goods, hospitality, and more. Quick introduction, I'm Marcellus Neel. As was mentioned earlier, I'm currently the Global Creative Director of Amazon Ads. Prior to that, I was the Creative Director of Amazon Fashion. Prior to that, I was the Founding Creative Director of Amazon Home and the Founding Creative Director of our Amazon private label furniture and private label fashion lines. But I actually present today not as a representative of Amazon, but because I love identifying opportunities and creating lifestyle-based worlds around and collections around those opportunities. In my career, that's been a lot of diverse opportunities, from beachy lifestyle home goods campaigns to designing interiors for department stores internationally, or art direction and branding for global fashion brands. However, pertaining to the topic today, my experience has been with Hollister, Hill Flint, Eddie Bauer, and the aforementioned Amazon Fashion, all of which sit within variables on the American experience. And then further, I've explored that in a couple of additional projects, including one titled Eastern Parkway, which is named after a leafy, tree-lined boulevard in my hometown of Louisville, Kentucky. And within that exploration, I explored a few different kind of merchandising worlds, including things like archival racing that look at the mid-century dawn of NASCAR and IndyCar, camping influences that again could stretch from Pennsylvania to Idaho, Fieldhouse Athletic, this mix of collegiate and scholastic and rec league, sometimes almost borderline outsider art within some of those apparel pieces. And then the unique mix of military and Polynesian that you see in Hawaii and the Pacific Northwest. And then finally, a nautical exploration that focused more on the Great Lakes rather than what we traditionally see coastal. Additionally, I began looking at some speculative campaign work, which combined brand strategy, copywriting, and art direction. Then my second exploration was a collaboration with a colleague who was formerly a RRL merchant, and we launched a small capsule collection. It's actually still sold in 2 stores in Tokyo and 1 store in Chicago. And that was really inspired by, again, the scholastic athletics of the 1940s and 1950s, and kind of looking at the photography style, looking at the apparel itself. And then this was, one of our primary concerns, and why it is sold in Tokyo, is we were looking at that Japanese market. So even the graphic design of it is inspired by some of those Japanese Amatora publications. This allowed me to combine product design, photography, graphic design, and copywriting as well. And then the final exploration I did was for a contemporary denim line with a holding company that didn't end up getting off the ground, but again, it gave me an opportunity to look into the American design lexicon and really explore those aforementioned roadside neon signs and kind of denim inspiration and those elements. So the efforts were really fulfilling, but I was looking for an outlet that could combine strategy, copy, photo, graphics, all of these pieces, and just general brand work while also being fun. Thus, I created an approach that was inspired by the world building of Walt Disney, where you'll see these spatial designs come to life through the apparel that the employees are wearing, the signage, through the music that plays in those spaces. Also inspired by the optimism and celebratory tone of Life magazine, which I just saw about a week or 2 ago that the model Carly Kloss is launching this magazine. So I'm interested to see the results there. Also inspired by the cheekiness of Ed Ruscha's art and by the sensuality of Tom Ford's eye. And Tom Ford is actually a Texan originally. I think he lives still in the Southwest now. And then there's that dash of the aforementioned Amatora as well. So that approach came together through the Instagram ongoings of a fictional town called Yearling Heights, an inclusive community with a motto that translates to, if you want to be loved, love, and a town not as a political statement, but as a human statement. A town in full, with its own mayor, businesses, parks, lakes, forests, and so on, and really an opportunity to tell stories and capture moments within the context of those places. Of course, the question then became, well, how would I capture this imagery without a multi-million-dollar budget? So using AI imagery itself, an exercise in styling, casting, lighting, posing, and subject matter. An exercise that after dozens of posts and individual stories has come to represent really a culture in and of itself. And the joy of an exercise like this is actually in presenting these quirky town-specific activities, like a couple's window pane pies and how the scent of those waft through the town center. The budding romance, or portraying a budding romance in a canoe on Seneca Lake. A local home goods merchant selling her wares by driving through the Upper Aurora neighborhood with vintage rugs in the back of her Volkswagen. And cheeky moments like three friends participating in the polar bear plunge. And the one kind of, to me, I guess, ironic thing about this is most AI generators, you cannot generate nudity. So they actually are wearing shorts, but I pixelated it to make it look like that they are taking a true polar bear plunge. Likewise, the format offers an opportunity to present almost photo essays. In this case, it's the pomp and circumstance around a college football Saturday at fictional Tapicata State, and portraying from the roar of the crowd at a prep rally to quieter moments as well. Another example is mischief between the stacks at the town library. And one great joy in putting this together is also in writing the captions, which help provide context and an extra wink to the imagery. And the way I present this is that this is written by the folks that I've deemed the Yearling Heights Tourism and Vacation Bureau staff and volunteers. So it's just adding kind of that other level of is this real or is it not component. World building also provides an outlet to produce video treatments.
Hey baby, won't you take a chance? See that you let me have this chance to listen. But listen. But do the twist and stop the mashed potato too. Any of them to let you want to do, but listen. But listen.
In a sense, many of the themes and stories presented almost could be reframed as individual campaigns or as individual brands. A story of a couple on a lake could be a chino and flannel story, and it could be titled Autumn Lake. If you wanted to take it into a real location, a tailoring story could be set in Chicago's Oak Street. But one thing I want to kind of conclude with, I guess, here is a little, in my mind, behind the scenes or truth about AI imagery, because I don't often see people pointing this out, which is that it takes dozens, if not hundreds sometimes, of different prompts and tweaks to come up with the actual image that you're looking for. Similar to when you're on a photo shoot or you're on a photo set, it might take 100 images to get one select. So I'm going to walk you through an example here. I did a thing over Oscars weekend where the town threw their own Vanity Fair type party called the Gatsby's. And this was one of the images from that party. So I know what I'm wanting to achieve. This isn't the actual prompt, but this is what I'm wanting to achieve. So I initially generate with dozens and dozens of of different types of images. I'm varying the poses, I'm varying the camera, I'm varying the talent descriptions, all different sort of variables to try to get closer to what I have in my mind, or to be surprised. There's some images on the account that were total surprises that I didn't see coming. But usually I know what I'm trying to achieve. Then I get that down to the type of image I'm looking for and trim it to a few selects. And then once I have a situation or setup, that's when you can really go in and start to tweak the details. So in this case, I'm actually auditioning different faces for my talent. And then once I have that solved, I take the image and edit it just like I would a photo. Get a duotone, fix levels, do the usual photo editing. I also add a little bit of grain to kind of hopefully remove some of that AI sheen. And then I drop that final image into a layout and add graphics. But again, for this particular carousel, I produced 21 images. So you can imagine this takes quite a while to do, especially if you're trying to tell a story. You're balancing different framing. You don't want everything to be the same frame. You're balancing different casting, different emotions for everyone that you're trying to portray to really round out the essay. Hopefully see, though, the AI imagery is just kind of the starting point. It's not the end, it's the means to the end of the ability to craft a larger story. There's the copywriting that I mentioned, the video and audio editing, as well as different graphics. So within that, one actual non-AI element of outreach for the account has been an honorary citizen in good standing digital badge that if you follow the account, you can write and choose the badge you want, the background you want, and your name. And you will receive a digital badge with all the aforementioned pieces together. And you also get a note of thanks from the mayor of Yearling Heights for becoming a citizen in good standing. So these are a few of those examples, which again is just kind of combining all of these different fun components that are frankly fun to work on. It's also fun to get these messages from people. Some of them are actually angry where they're like, what the hell is this account? Which I kind of love when people are like so perplexed what's going on. But the AI approach, it isn't without challenges. I'm going to show you some of the outtakes, I guess you could say. I've actually found, just in my experience, that AI is relatively easy when you're trying to show a portrait, just a straight ahead portrait, or if you're creating landscapes, or if you're doing something in the sci-fi realm. The human eye is okay if a plastic arm starts here or if it starts here. The human eye isn't as okay if your elbow is in your forearm. So it can be a bit trickier when you're really trying to portray true to life scenarios. Additionally, it can be really tricky when you're trying to portray multiple people. So you can see here in this close-up, some of these faces are almost kind of sliding off of where they should be. It's also difficult to show a solo person in action. Like in this, I'm trying to get someone to throw a snowball. And this unfortunate guy, one arm is all snow and the other one is not quite fully there. And I actually have never been successfully able to render someone throwing. Seems to be a physics issue with AI. So if you take those two together, it's really tricky when you're trying to show a group of people doing an action. In this case, I was doing a New Year's Day, kind of, everyone's out running around the town, getting a workout in. And you can see this guy is clicking his heels. Third leg here. These two have, I don't think the body bends that way, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And then this unfortunate soul on the right is a very twisted day. Despite those challenges, though, which are getting easier, actually, ultimately, Yearling Heights is a use case in employing AI to rapidly prototype and build a vision as a solo creator or as a small team. be it for a town, a campaign, or a brand. And in this case, it's a town, but it can go beyond that. So I just as easily could have, been rendering for a 70s inspired, French tennis brand. Or where my mind starts to go is, what if you did a long form novel, visual novel of a couple in a futuristic metropolis? Or if you didn't want to go as long form, what if you followed a rock band on tour? Or if you followed a European soccer season, or one team within a European soccer season, and then you generated merchandise off of that team? Just the world of possibilities that you can do with these quick iterations. But for today, pertaining to what I was generating, I just wanted to be a reminder that there is American cool and sophistication, not just on the West Coast, not just on the East Coast, but within the rest of the land as well, even if it's fictional. Thank you. I'll give that to you. Thank you so much.
Wow. The dedication to storytelling is amazing. Seriously, amazing. And I stumbled onto Yearling Heights completely randomly. And just amazing to hear the background. Wow. Let's get started with some questions.
Let's do
You
it.
ready? All right. What are your expectations in terms of video generated by AI? Have you tried it already? When will it become as good as the imagery?
I've tried it, and it was a disaster. It's kind of the difference between shooting stills and shooting video, and then all of the production that goes after that, and the editing together. And I hope it's soon to come, because I think it's a great opportunity. But yeah, I don't know what the timeline is. It's funny, actually, quickly on that note, when I was asked to speak at this, I was telling the folks who asked me, I'm not an AI expert. I just wanted to generate a fake town. So
You're a storyteller.
there you go. Yeah,
Right?
exactly. Yeah.
Leveraging AI. What are your which AI tools do you use? That's a great one.
Great question. I use Midjourney, and then, like I mentioned, I will take that and do photo editing software. I'll do your traditional video software, traditional Adobe Audition audio software. One thing I have started doing recently that's also kind of fun is if I can't think of names for the characters, I'll just go into ChatGPT and be like, give me a bunch of names.
Awesome.
Or sometimes I'll want like a certain turn of the phrase, so I'll ask ChatGPT to write it in the voice of like a Jennifer Egan, who's an author that I love. So you can pull little bits and pieces that way too.
Sure.
That's not just visual.
Yeah. That's cool. What's the best prompt you found to have the AI generator deliver truly photorealistic imagery? What are your most used AI generating tools?
Tools, I'm just writing it.
Okay.
So I know there are tools out there. I did it for like 5 minutes. I found it was really inconsistent. And the challenge with the prompts is that what works changes almost every week or every month. So for example, I think it was in March or in February, they went from like version 5.7 in Midjourney, 5.7 to 6, and the whole language of all of the prompts changed. So you really had to like
So
tip
all your
into,
learnings,
yeah,
all your
everything
learnings
you've been
disappeared?
doing. Yeah. So like, whereas before you were just doing short kind of expressive phrases, now, for example, you want to write full sentences like, this is a photograph of blah, 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 blah. It was taken with such and such camera, such and such lens.
Okay.
So it's kind of a constantly evolving thing. But the one thing I will say is you don't have to know like a dev language. So that is kind of a relief, I think, for a lot of creatives who don't know dev languages.
Yeah,
So.
for sure. What was the voice over at the beginning of your presentation AI generated as well?
Oh, that's a great question. That was not. That was actually just something I stole from another project I worked on and applied it to this one. So.
Okay, so then what is your take on legal and ethical side of using Gen AI in e-commerce?
Yeah, it's really tricky because obviously as a creative, I'm not too stoked about like just anyone being able to take the work that you've crafted and that, is your work and generate it for something else. And I think even particularly where I have sympathies is for photographers.
Yeah.
And not only just photographers in the sense of, it could potentially, damage the business, but aping their style of photography. I know I'm out of Seattle, and I know Adobe is working on some AI things that they're trying to do that are self-examining of their own imagery rather than, what Midjourney does, which is now open source. So I'm hoping that comes to fruition because it is definitely a tangled spot to be in.
Absolutely. And kind of a real gray area.
Really gray, yeah.
Really gray.
But you know what? I want, sorry, one thing about that.
Yeah.
I think it's like the most exciting thing in a long time as a creative in the sense of like, even with Midjourney, there are times where you're working on something and the crispness of it, you feel like you're looking into the future. Or there are just there's little weird nuances and things. So it actually reminds me almost of like the web in like 96, where it's kind of like no company really owns it yet, and you can explore on your own as a creator. So I think it's pretty fun in that way, actually.
Yeah, and what I love about it is that it's really sparked a lot of creativity.
Absolutely.
And a lot of people that may have lost that spark for a little while. It's just this new tool to, from a creative standpoint, really explore and kind of get back in touch with.
Totally. And I'm hoping too, like, I've always been a fan of like easier tools for all. So the barrier for, a teenager, I always think of like a teenager in Eastern Kentucky, because I'm from Kentucky, that they can start to generate imagery where they would never have that resource before.
Yeah.
That to me is a really exciting opportunity.
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's clear that a lot of time and effort has gone into that. And so I have to ask the question, especially given, your extensive resume with working with teams, do you think it was more time and energy doing it this way, or had you had a crew and gone around and created this?
Good question. I think less energy if I had a crew.
Basically, the time, the totality of time and energy that's been put into it
in
by
shooting in it or in AI,
in creating just the whole story that you've done.
I think it would be. Well, I think that's the thing is if you have a crew, you could maybe tell an even deeper story. Yeah, okay. Maybe I could have generated video. But as a solo creator, if you want to do something like this, first of all, stop watching TV. You won't have any time for it. But, it does offer such a great opportunity to explore. Like I say, I was looking at it beyond just a brand, but what if you wanted to follow like I mentioned, a sports team for a season and tell those stories? I think is really fun. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Everybody give Marcellus
a
round of applause. That was amazing.